All right, money and wealth. You would think, okay, well, this is it, man. We just bribe everyone, we just bribe the entire world, and we're good, right? The problem is this. The problem is that if you bribe people, they're not gonna fight for you, right? Because all they want is your money. So you bribe them, but they'll probably take your money and run away, okay? Or they'll figure out how to get more money out of you by cheating you. So right now, the Americans are gonna fund these militias and ethnic minorities and opposition groups against Iran, okay? Guess what, guys? These guys are hustlers, right? They're not fighting because they want more freedom. They're fighting because they want to rip off the US government. And so this money issue can be a problem in the long term because the people you're bribing, you can't even trust. And they're not motivated to actually win this war for you. They're actually motivated to scam you as much as possible. And they could be actually a problem in the long term because you're putting so much resources into these hustlers, okay? All right, so what this means is that America has three major problems, okay? It has three major problems. The first major problem is the lack of political will. And all this is saying is that the American people don't want to fight this war. The American government doesn't even know why they're fighting this war. No one cares, okay? But for the Iranians, it's a struggle of life and death, right? If America loses this war, they just go home and forget about it. But if the Iranians lose this war, they all get killed. Or they lose their country, they lose their society, they lose their civilization, they lose identity. They cannot afford to lose this war, okay? So the first major problem that the Americans are facing is they don't have any political will to fight this war, but they're still fighting this war anyway. Okay? The question then, of course, is why? Why is this happening? This is actually the most important question. It's the most complicated, so we'll save this for later, okay? Second is the idea of logistics and manufacturing. So America is very good at fighting short wars, okay? The reason why is they're advanced, they have the most advanced weaponry, but they have manufacturing issues because, as we know, America shipped all its factories to China. So America doesn't have that many factories. So yes, it has the most advanced weaponry in the world, but this weapon doesn't do any good if you don't have any munitions, right? You don't have any munitions, bombs, bullets. And you need factories for that. And America doesn't really have these factories. Now, I understand that America is trying to upgrade its manufacturing capacity, but it's kind of slow, all right? So maybe 5 years from now, it will have manufacturing capacity to fight this war, but right now it doesn't. So that's another major issue, okay? And then the last issue, of course, is casualties. All right, America, because it doesn't have the political will to fight this war, cannot afford to lose soldiers on the battlefield. All right? So it wants to minimize the death, it wants to minimize battlefield losses. Because if like 1,000, tens of thousands of American soldiers are going home to America dead in coffins, I guarantee you, because of lack of political will, the American people will revolt. You have protests, you will have a lot of violence in the streets. It'll be like the Vietnam era again. All right? Okay, so yes, I understand that America has technology, propaganda, and money, but as we discussed, these aren't really advantages. And these disadvantages are huge. The lack of political will, the lack of manufacturing, and the lack of America cannot afford to lose that many soldiers in the battlefield, okay? And so this situation now determines how America will fight this war. And we'll discuss this later on, okay? All right, now let's talk about Iran. Okay, so Iran has a lot of disadvantages, okay? But I want to discuss right now their 3 major advantages that they need to emphasize if they are to survive this war, all right? The first is the idea of faith. All right? So remember that the Iranians are Shia. And as such, it's a religion of martyrdom, of eschatology, of individual sacrifice for the greater good. The Shia are not afraid to die. And because their great religious leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, was assassinated by the Americans and Israelis, they are motivated to seek vengeance, to martyr themselves for the greater good, to seek eternal paradise, okay? Jihad. All right, that's the first major advantage. The second major advantage is terrain. And all this means is that Iran is a mountainous country. And it's huge. It's 3 times the size of Iraq. So it's very hard for America to invade the country. In fact, most analysts will tell you it is suicidal for the American military to invade Iran. It is a mountain fortress, okay? It's a fortress. And the last issue is, the last advantage is nationalism. Okay? All right. So the Iranians are Persians. And the Persians go back 5,000 years. It is one of the greatest civilizations in human history. And as we discussed last semester, in the ancient world, there were 3 great civilizations, right? The Jews, the Greeks, and the Persians. And the Persian culture, it's vast, it's beautiful, and it's deep. And that's what gives the Iranian people a lot of pride. Okay? So when they're fighting, they're not just fighting for their religion, they're not just fighting for their homes, they're fighting for the entire civilization that goes back 5,000 years. Right? So these are the 3 major advantages that the Iranians have. Okay? Faith means that they're not afraid to die for what they believe in. Terrain means that the Americans will have a hard problem invading the country. Nationalism means that the people of Iran know what they're fighting for. All right? So, but again, remember, everything that it seems like an advantage can be a disadvantage as well. All right? So, let's go over what the problems are. With faith, you might have an issue of blindness, okay? Or zealotry, where you're not afraid to die, but that means that you're not thinking strategically, okay? Maybe you're gonna waste too many soldiers on the battlefield. They're brave, but they're kind of stupid as well. All right, so you might have an issue where Iran is not using the optimal strategy because their soldiers are not afraid of death. And we're already seeing that where the Americans have already blown up and destroyed the Iranian Navy. Now, anyone could have told you that the first thing the Americans would do is go destroy the Iranian Navy. So you should probably not use the Navy or hide the Navy or blow up the Navy yourself, okay? Because you want to avoid as many casualties as possible. But they didn't do that, and the Americans have now destroyed the Iranian Navy, all right? So that's the issue of faith. Terrain, yeah, it's a fortress, but it can also be a prison, right? Where you're just sort of stuck there, and because it's a mountainous region, it doesn't have that many resources. So Americans can actually disrupt your water supply, disrupt your electricity, okay, and cause general poverty and hardship for your people, okay? And then nationalism, yes, Persia is a great culture, but remember that Iran is an ethnically diverse country. In fact, only 50% of the population of Iran are Persians. Others are different minorities, okay? All right, so you have then ethnic divisions, right? Okay, so looking at this, now we know exactly what the American strategy will be. Basically, the strategy will be to inflict as many casualties as possible on the Iranians. All right, to kill as many people as possible. Destroy the infrastructure of Iran so that the people don't have enough water, electricity, food to survive, okay? And the third, of course, is to create as much ethnic tension in the country as possible by arming and encouraging and bribing ethnic groups to rebel against the central government in Tehran, right? Okay? But again, what the law of asymmetry tells us is that the empire ultimately is not as flexible and open and dynamic as its enemy, okay? The weaker person is going to engage in much more self-reflection, self-debate than the empire, okay? Because the empire will become arrogant. And so ultimately, Iran should triumph over America. And in fact, what's going to happen is that this strategy that America will use against the Iranians will lead to the Iranians becoming much more energetic, open, and cohesive. Okay? So let's look at the American strategy specifically. All right, so this is an ethnic map of Iran, okay? Now, certain things that you will see is how divided the country is. Yeah, the Persians are in the center, but people you want to watch are the Kurds, okay, the Kurds, and the Azaris, and the Balochs, okay? These are the three major problem areas for Iran, and it's always been the case. Remember, the Persians are in the middle. So the Balochs are, first of all, Sunni Muslims. And as we discussed last class, the Sunnis and the Shias have never really gotten along well together. They have different, they're the same religion, Islam, but they have different belief systems. That's led to a lot of conflicts in the past. It's almost like the Catholics and the Protestants, okay? And so the Balochs have been trying to rebel against Iranians for a long time. I guarantee you that there are already Israeli and American special forces embedded in this area, okay? The reason why is that they want to encourage as much civil conflict as possible, but they also want to prepare the